They had both been bludgeoned, stabbed in their heads and their arms and their upper bodies, and they also had their throats and wrists slit. Ernest had 6 blunt force injuries and 6 incisive wounds, but Charlene appeared to be attacked even more forcefully. She had suffered 20 blunt force trauma wounds and cuts to her wrists and her jugular. She was unrecognizable. Ernest had plans the very next morning on March 8th around 8 in the morning to walk for a voter registration drive, but he never showed up. So investigators believed that this couple had been killed either the night of March 7th after 8:30 p.m. or in the early morning hours of March 8th, which would make sense as to why their mail hadn't been collected since then. But this would mean that the couple had been killed 6 days prior to being found. Now, their daughter Catherine would immediately phone her brother Ernie, and he would start sobbing over the phone, and they would plan to meet up and come into town for the funerals. On March 22nd, the funerals were held, and their son Ernie carried the casket. He brought along his wife and their young son with him, and Catherine and her family were there as well. Catherine and Ernie had been questioned. Catherine went to the police department and gave her alibi that she was in Utah at the time of the murders, where she lived. She was then told that there was only one person investigators couldn't rule out, and when Catherine heard this, she couldn't believe it. But behind the scenes, the Alameda County Sheriff's Office had already had their eyes on one particular suspect. Investigators believed that the couple knew their killer and let them in the home that night. Many had also been reporting to police that at the funeral service, Ernie, their son, showed very little emotion. They found it extremely odd enough that they went to police with this information. So Alameda County Sheriff's Office began to look into Ernie, the eldest child and their only son. They found that he was married with a small child, but was deeply in debt after purchasing a home with the help of his parents. He hadn't received a loan from the bank, but from his parents, owing them $600,000. So 10 days after the bodies of Ernest and Charlene had been found inside their home on March 24th of 2008, their son and a prime suspect in their murder would vanish. But while investigators were searching for him, they would get a tip that Ernie had filed a motion through his lawyer to attempt to get his share of his parents' estate. Investigators then tracked down Ernie to Las Vegas, and they found his empty hotel room as well as a car, and an undercover cop actually placed a GPS tracker on him. At this point, his wife, Robin, and his sister, Catherine, were living in fear that he would come after them next if he could do this to his own parents. In February 2009, Ernie Scherer was finally arrested on suspicion of a double murder in Las Vegas.